get like
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation. I am the Outlaw John Rocha. I'm very excited to be joined by these two wonderful people to talk about all the stuff that's happening in Star Wars. Laura Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. I'm very excited to sit here and relive all of the wonderful Star Wars things that happened this weekend and weeks past at Celebration. So I am having an amazing day.
If Laura looks rested, it's because she's had an entire week to recover from Star Wars celebrations. So she is ready to go. And we got a lot to get into. And joining us as well, coming back as a guest again, we're very happy to have him back on, the great Kevin Smets. How are you, Smets?
Well, I'm not rested because I had a sick baby. So when you're dealing with daycare and all the patient zeros that are there, trying to figure out if they have hazmat suits in small. So my baby can stop having to stay home. But doing well. Got Return of the Jedi tickets for Friday, so I'm excited. AMC nice. Mission Valley down here in San Diego. Yeah, it's coming back for the 40th anniversary this weekend. I totally spaced about that.
Yeah. I got the notice yesterday. There's a theater right up here, so I'm gonna go just chill out by myself and enjoy it one more. It's been forever since I've seen it, and it looks like you've got the skyline of Coruscant right behind you there, Kevin. In the
trying to work on the I was telling you about with no backlight, so we'll see how these are cool. Like, it's very Star Warsy, although it's not like a quick door. Those are cool. Right. It goes down.
Looks good.
It's a cool effect.
Yeah. But we're ready to jump into some things. We're ready to jump into a lot of things, rather, about Star Wars here. Certainly Star Wars Celebrations, Laura was kind of hinting at. We also got the big KATEE Sackhoff interview. KRISTIAN Harloff sitting down with her for 80 minutes, for God's sakes. And Mr. Wiggly got some shots in as well. But yeah, Brett Sheridan there. But certainly 80 minutes with KATEE Sackhoff revealing all kinds of stuff for Mandalorian Season 3. So if you haven't seen Mandalorian Season 3, you're going to have some stuff spoiled for you. Just warning you ahead of time. We've got some news on Kino Loy coming back to Andor Season 2 and other things going on here in the world of Star Wars as well. And Jedi Survivor is now out. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the video game, is out now. A lot of people are reviewing that positively as well. So a lot's happening in the world of Star Wars. Before we start, I just want to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button. And always, if you want to listen to previous episodes of the Jedi Way, you can head on over to the Outlaw Nation podcast feed there and find the previous episodes for now. But in the future, the Jedi Way will be branching off at some point into its own feed for sure. Laura Kelly, where shall we start first?
I want to start with Star Wars Celebration because I have a couple of highlights that I really enjoyed from that week that I was there. And I am actually really curious to hear what some of your guys' favorite announcements and things you're excited about that were announced that week. Because for me, a lot of it was just getting to see a lot of my old friends again. A lot of people even in May 2020 or May 2022 couldn't make that trip. Just because, some lingering effects of the pandemic or for whatever reason couldn't make the celebration. So this was one where I got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in Anaheim, and getting to just kind of go out and party in London was a really, really good time. I think one of my highlights, though, and I've talked a little bit about this, and I was very excited about it on Twitter, Lars Mikkelsen being announced as Thrawn. You guys, he was pulling a full Andrew Garfield and straight up just lying when he was doing interviews with people being like, are you going to be Thrawn? Are you going to be Thrawn? Are you going to be Thrawn? He just would say no, that nobody had called him. And so everybody was, I think, a little bit skeptical as whether or not it would be him. And I remained convinced that it would be Lars Mikkelsen. So I was excited about being right, number one. And I was excited that it is, in fact, Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels, returning to play the live-action character. For me, that announcement and seeing him walk out on stage, that was a real highlight.
Yeah, tell us about your experience there. I mean, Laura, compared to Anaheim, I was there in Anaheim. We hung out, had lunch, and then also we went to separate panels and experienced Anaheim. But what was the difference between Anaheim and, say, London? What did you like? What was the vibe? What was the feeling? Was there just this feeling like, okay, now everybody is out? There's no longer the COVID fear. Everybody is slamming into themselves and shoving themselves into these big auditoriums to see all this stuff. Did you sense that there was just as much excitement or more excitement as we had in Anaheim?
I mean, there was definitely just as much excitement. I think the vibe, you know, it's hard to say how different it was because in Anaheim, it was a lot like warmer outside and it was sunny and we could like all kind of gather outside and like hang around the fountains and by the food trucks and things. And in London, it was, I mean, there were some days where it was kind of chilly. I had brought 2 sort of light jackets to layer with me. And there were mornings where I would walk over to the convention center and I definitely needed both. So like hanging out outside was sort of hit or miss. And there really wasn't as big of like a common place for everybody to sort of gather and just hang out, or at least not one that I saw very much of, because I don't know. But it was very not the best venue I think I've seen for some. It was just too small, I think. Gotcha. Like not only was like the biggest auditorium, I think it can only fit like 4,500 people. Wow. I mean, like the arena in Chicago could fit like almost 10,000 people at full capacity. I think the way they had the stage, it was probably more like 7,000, but it just was small. And then even just kind of like the sort of like hallways, walking to get from panel to panel or get to the exhibit floor were pretty narrow. There just wasn't a lot of space. And so you saw, I think, a lot of those pictures, especially on Saturday, which is always the busiest day, of just massive wall-to-wall people crowds. So not my favorite venue for Celebration. I think I would probably question maybe going back if they were to do another one there. Right. But at the end of the day, it's still Celebration. It's still just the most fun that any Star Wars fan I feel like can be having at any given time, is just checking with any Star Wars fan at any point over that 4 days. Yeah, they're going to be excited no matter what. And that's what I was.
Fair point. Kevin, what stood out to you from the announcements? Anything you want to touch base on or reiterate from Star Wars Celebration?
Yeah, in case the things slip through the cracks, I was pretty stoked that they're going to do new Star Wars adventures or Star Tours. Yes, Star Tours rather. So they'll probably do. I bet you they're going to do Disney Plus show locations. So we're going to head to Navarro and Mandalore, hopefully. So that'll be cool. I'm guessing you got to have a mythosaur in there at some point, and you race through the teeth. So that'll be fun. Also, like, it was nice to see Hayden get emotional in that one interview. Were you in the crowd for that, Laura? Did you see that or no?
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah. He missed an opportunity when someone said like what quote do people quote him all the time, and someone in the background shouted, "I don't like sand," but he ignored it. Like, that would have been a good opportunity for him. I'm like, come on, you should say it. And he said something like, "Oh, may the force be with you." I'm like, no one says that to you. But like, he got emotional, and that kind of got me emotional because, like, like it's a rough go, and like I can't imagine Hayden, like, when he went to see if he saw Clerks 2. Just like trying to get a day off, and then they make fun of him in a line where they're like, "Oh, look at me, my wooden acting ruining saga." Like, that would be so crappy to like go to a theater. There's a line in there. They're arguing. It's a Lord of the Rings fan versus a Star Wars fan, and they're both talking smack on each other's movies. But it's just a real shot to Hayden. Right. So to see him get like that emotions on the stage there, and I really loved the Obi-Wan show and his performance in it. So for me, that was great. And then the other standout was obviously the Ahsoka trailer. And then I like to hear the some of the words said by the showrunner of The Acolyte, Leslie
Headland.
Yeah, she seems like some of their quotes there. The show's going to be in good hands. So those are the things that I was kind of that stood out to me. How about you, Rocha?
Yeah, I haven't seen Russian Doll, but I'm a massive fan of Single Drunk Female, and Leslie Headland is a EP or co-EP on that show as well. And so if that's a show anything to go on, then that gets me even more excited for The Acolyte. Seeing all the cast members come out, finally being able to say that they're in it, finally being able to be a part of it and communicate with each other, I think was really great. So I'm very excited for The Acolyte. So I'm going to see Russian Doll at some point. I know there's 2 seasons of it, and I enjoyed Poker Face with Natasha Lyonne. So I got to swing over. But Single Drunk Female, I cannot stress this enough. A great series. The second season even better than the first season, I thought. So see that. You all should absolutely see that if you want to get a sample of how Leslie Headland deals with these kinds of touchy subjects and makes it work overall.
We're gonna get Natasha Lyonne as a Sith Lord or as a bartender.
Without
maybe?
Question, she's got to
be a bartender, right?
I'm gonna go droid. I'm gonna go droid.
Droid! Oh yeah,
yes. Oh, that should be great. Kind of like Joan Rivers in Spaceballs. I'd love to see her as a droid. It'd be hilarious. Yeah, I thought certainly the Ahsoka panel was fantastic, and getting the trailer I thought was really great as well. But for me, I know I probably get shit for this, but I love Daisy, man. I really, 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 really love Daisy, and to see her standing there, and I've heard some behind the scenes stuff of how this all came together, and it almost didn't. And I can't talk about it, but it almost didn't. So the fact that she was there talking and, you know, coming back to it and celebrating it, I thought was great. And of course, as has been reported, a couple of my sources tell me she may not be the only person returning from that sequel trio in this movie. We shall see if it happens, but certainly it'll be
so funny. I see your name pop up now all the time, you and Snyder's name and all these reports. But this was your scoop. I liked it. I was like, from a
couple of sources. Yeah, Boyega possibly coming back. Possibly. Look, don't kill me if you want later, but this is what I'm hearing from two people that are reliable and have been right in the past before stuff's broken before. So that's what they're saying. We'll see. But to me, it was seeing Daisy, and she wore that beautiful red dress, and she kind of commanded the stage and owned that moment. I thought it was really great to see that. And I'll tell you something else, and I know it's shocking that I'm bringing this up. Laura, that High Republic stuff they announced looked really, really interesting. The books, looking at the covers of the books, I thought looks fascinating as well. Trials of the Jedi, that looks real interesting. I'm going to catch up definitely before those books come out. And then I think Star Wars Visions. I mean, seeing how much more they're really committed to Star Wars Visions. And it feels like the amount of money that they've spent on Star Wars Visions on these separate tales. Because, yes, animation studios do them, but I'm sure Disney is footing the bill. And it seems like they're trying to show that they can go next level with this stuff just from the trailer that I saw. And I can't wait to dive into those episodes and watch it, because I have the screeners. I haven't quite watched it yet, but I will be in the next couple of days. So to me, that's exciting stuff as well, which stood out to me. Anything more to say on this, Laura? Anything more to jump on?
No, I don't think so. I will say that the Obi-Wan Kenobi panel was a highlight. Hayden was there too, and it was it was really great to get to relive some of those moments in terms of, like, I think the most moving panel that I saw that weekend was Obi-Wan. They did they played like a sort of series of clips to kind of recap the series. And it was, I would love it if they would release that somewhere. Maybe it's already out there, because they know the Obi-Wan panel was streamed. I don't know if that section of it is out there, but I remember watching that, and everybody in the room was just like, did we all just get emotional from that? That was emotional, right? It really was. So that was a real highlight. So that, like I said, that's streaming out there somewhere. It's definitely worth a watch.
How did you sneak into the showcase panel? What's that all about?
I cheated. I just straight up cheated. That's really all it was. I had traded away my ticket to get into the Ahsoka panel, and then ended up sort of getting there really, really early in the morning. My friend had held a spot for us, and we waited in line, and then we kind of got screwed out of the line because it was the first day of the panel. Nobody knows what they're doing. People are running when they're not supposed to be running and cutting, and we got shifted into the wrong line, and so it kind of got torn away from us, I think, when it shouldn't have been. Yeah. And so we ended up just kind of going up to someone and just being like, oh, I don't know, my code won't work. And again, nobody knows what they're doing on day one. So they're just like, go. And we were like, cool.
Laura Kelly. Don't ever listen. If there's anyone who gets what she wants, it's Laura Kelly, for God's sakes.
I was going to get into that no matter what. Okay. I just was. There's no.
You're going to be on season 2 of Andor, sneaking in somewhere with Andor.
Watch me.
But the next one is going to be in Japan, and Laura and I had an exchange on Twitter about this. And Kevin, your thoughts on that? I mean, Japan. I'm excited about 2025 in Japan. Never been. It'd be a great excuse to go to Tokyo. I'm a huge Japanophile, so to me, this seems like the greatest situation, considering how much Kurosawa influenced Lucas from the beginning. So it would be nice to go to the source of some of the influence of Lucas for Star Wars. So, but Laura's saying no, Japan's not her thing. What's that all about?
I don't know, man. I just have I feel like I've got a massive list of places I want to go see, and like Japan's just not on the list. So it's like just not very high. So I'm saying no for now, but what's going to happen is we're going to get closer and closer to it. And I'm going to start to miss all my friends again. I'm going to want to go, and I'm going to buy a ticket just to have, and then I'm just going to, over the course of time, talk myself into going. That is what's going to happen. But I'm saying no now.
Fair enough. Kevin, your thoughts? Any thought in 2025? Would you go to Japan for Star Wars Celebration.
Hopefully you'll see your friends before 2025 and you don't need to fly to Tokyo to see them. You can, you know what I mean? Meet somewhere halfway, you know, somewhere in the States. Look, I'm, yeah, like for me, like when the Star Cruiser released, remember the Star Cruiser hotel, and it was like for 3 days the same price as going to Prague for like 2 weeks. So it was like, that's not for me. So like for me, like I do want to go to Japan someday, but there are other spots on the map I don't want to go to. But also I have a child, so I can't really go anywhere until she's 18.
Wow.
You know, to make it easy. I can't take her to a Star Wars event next year anyway. So I'm going to have to pass, but I'm kicking myself for not going to the Anaheim one. Because, you know, here I am thinking like, oh, I'll go next year when it's in Florida, or next year when it's in Austin, or back in California. And now it's been London. It's like Japan. And that is just a little it's going to be a little tough to swing with such a young child. Maybe my wife will let me go. Hey, can I go to Japan for 2 weeks? We'll see. You know, you can handle the baby on your own, right? Yeah. I don't think that'll go over well. But
and I wonder if they'll swing back. Yeah, I'm sure. And I wonder. I
don't blame anyone for going to Japan though, like because like like you said, the Kurosawa, like that is just great. And just the whole culture and vibe there is like it would be really fascinating to see one day. It's definitely on the bucket list. So,
and I wonder if they'll move down to like New Zealand or Australia for the next one, and then find their way back to the States. I don't know. I mean, it could be really interesting to see that. And Laura, I wonder if they're taking lessons from what they experienced there at the Excel Center. Because look, it's Britain. Everything is tight in Britain. I lived there for 6 months when I was studying in '98, and the hallways are tight, the rooms are small, the bathrooms are small. It is an incredibly tight place to be. So I'm not surprised what you say about the center there and how it didn't quite house people as well as it could have. And then you look at Japan, maybe there's, you know, they're learning those lessons and they're picking a place that's going to have much more space for people to go. I would imagine, because I imagine Star Wars is pretty big in certain sections of Japan. So, you know,
I would certainly hope so.
Yeah. They won't have it in China, right? China doesn't like Star Wars at all.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Japan
so if you want to see a space over there.
Yeah, judging from the box office there. That's
or North Korea. Celebration North Korea 2026. It's going to be fantastic.
Don't want that. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't bring your lightsabers. You'll get arrested for life.
Let's move on before Kevin gets in trouble. All right, next thing. Let's jump in to the KATEE Sackhoff interview, and we'll take a break after we talk about this. Laura, this and Kevin, this is what an interesting conversation KRISTIAN Harloff had with her for 80 minutes, talking about all things Bo-Katan, all things Mandalorian season 3 and season 2 a little bit as well. And she talked about her experiences playing the character, how much she was in the actual outfit 80% of the time, how the stunt woman was so great in working for the other 20% of the time. She also talked about working with Giancarlo Esposito. She gave some information about Pedro Pascal and how much he was on set. She revealed some stuff about acts. Like, what stood out for you from this interview as we look at, you know, Kevin, I'll go to you first. Kevin, what stood out for you from this interview as we listen to KATEE Sackhoff here?
Well, that one the quote that he put where she was like, some people hate me, some people love me, and then some people want me to sit on their face or whatever. Yeah. It's really funny. I don't want to like discount that. But, just her overall, like, I just love I love when they interview a celebrity that's in love with Star Wars and in love with their work. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you see the reports from CinemaCon right now that some actors are up there and they act like, not for Star Wars, but like for other things, they act like they could be anywhere else but here, right? So to see her, and she does a lot, like, to give 80 minutes of her time is great, and she's been doing a lot of shows and doing the circuit, and like, you know, especially it's like at the end of this, like the season's over, right? So there's a couple cool bombshells too. I saw in the notes that reminded me that she said that Axe was supposed to die in season 2, and they shot it even.
Yeah.
And then they scrapped it. So good for him. It was like, it's kind of like how Poe was supposed to die in the opening of The Force Awakens, right? And then kind of said, hey, let me stay alive.
It's weird how that works. Yeah, NoHo Hank was supposed to die in the pilot for
no way.
So it's kind of crazy to think of how they make changes depending on who goes in there. So, Laura, what stood out to you when you look at this interview? What were the things that really kind of caught your eye? And of course, you had a special meeting with KATEE Sackhoff there. But what did you think about overall?
I love all of the behind the scenes insight that we got out of this interview. And I mean, we don't have an episode of you know, what's the Disney Gallery series of The Mandalorian yet. I'm really hoping that we'll get one eventually. I haven't heard any word about whether or not that's coming. But this was a really great substitute, to be honest. Like, this was so interesting to get just kind of all of that behind the scenes stuff. I mean, her talking about her stunt double, Joanna Bennett, who I think, but wasn't she like one of the lead Tuskens in Book of Boba Fett too?
Oh yeah,
like she was, and that was such a cool character. Like, and that's so great that she got to, you know, be back in Star Wars, back in this world, and doing all of this stuff for Bo-Katan too. But I loved this entire interview. I mean, her talking about like that throne room scene in episode 1. I was just like, I could listen to this conversation. I could listen to a conversation just about this for like hours, where she was talking about how they were trying to like, they kind of built the set like around her a little bit, but then she was somehow still too small to sit on the throne and take up space. And so that's how they kind of came up with like sort of defeated, bored looking lean that she's doing. It's just, I mean, it was just fantastic. I really enjoyed getting all of that sort of behind the scenes scoop of what was going on with this season. Because it definitely wasn't, I mean, it was some interesting stuff in terms of like, was Pedro on set at all? Like, I'm kind of thinking no.
Yeah,
just because of the way she danced around the question a little bit, which is but we all kind of suspected that anyway. But I would be curious to hear what you guys think in terms of, will Bo-Katan potentially show up in the Ahsoka series? Because I feel like Katie mentioned Rosario Dawson a little bit, not so much in so many words of like having worked with her.
Right.
But then I don't know. So I'm like, I really would love to. I love the idea that she would show up in it, but I'm kind of thinking, oh, maybe they don't have enough time in 8 episodes for that.
Yeah, maybe, because she made it very clear when she was talking about the episodes how, you know, they've got to walk that line of having to shove all this stuff in here, but also keep the episodes to a little bit of a shorter length. And so that's always the thing they're straddling, I think she says. And so you would, maybe she shows up. And you're right. That's an interesting point, that because she was talking about Bryce Dallas Howard, and now she's an amazing woman who uplifts other women. And she says it's not always that experience with other women, but with her, I definitely had that. And with Rosario Dawson, she also mentions Mercedes Vernado, but she mentions Rosario Dawson and says how she's one of these people that's also so great and like loves being a part of Star Wars and loves women in Star Wars. So yeah, I mean, she can't obviously say it. So maybe that was her way of hinting around it, and her way. And she says later on how much she loves playing the character and is up for doing anything with the character and being a part of it. And there's, you know, the thing that came off as well is this ownership that she really takes with Bo-Katan. You know, Kevin, you were saying this earlier, how you like these actors who talk so positively about being a part of Star Wars. She I mean, Katie's an intense person, right? For all her joy and passion and love and real love that she has for the fans, when it comes to her work, she's super focused on her work and intense about her work and all the stuff in that she talks about, the preparation that she did to play this character. I mean, there are a lot of people that just show up, like Brian Cox shows up on the set. He says, I read the lines, I do the work, I go home. That's my job. But Katie is a different kind of actor because it takes all kinds. And her investment in this, bringing all the backstory, just really fascinating to hear from her. And I mean, and she's that close to the character, Kevin. Do you think she's going to show up in Ahsoka, as Laura's asking us?
I hope not, and here's why.
Oh,
Again, wow. I like setting the table with all of these characters. And they've had their glory. They've had their like solo films, right? Like, and we're setting up for this Avengers event level Filoni-verse mega movie. Yes, so for me, I'm like, all right, let's not oversaturate. Like, she's busy on Mandalore right now. I don't know how much. Well, I mean, it would be great to see her interact with Sabine, though.
Right.
Yeah, like my nerd heart says, yes, I want to see more of everything. Give me more of everything. But in my head, I'm like, but you don't want it to be oversaturated. Like, we want people to go to the theaters again, right? Like, we want for Star Wars movies,
right?
And we want this movie to feel like an end game level event. And I think when we're absence makes the heart grow fonder. So if we know she's up to her clans and they're handling everything back on Mandalore, and then we see them when they're needed most for this epic, you know, Thanos level event in the Filoni-verse movie, that's what I think prefer. But I mean, I could never say, I mean, I hate to say that because you can never have enough Bo-Katan. And I love that she loves to play it. So for me, my hope for her as an actress is she'll get to keep playing this part over and over again. But yeah, I feel like I would even say, like, look, let's sideline everybody now. Let's focus on Ahsoka. Let's focus on Acolyte, and then get the pieces ready to go for the Filoniverse movie. I know that's probably, I'd be in the minority for that, because that means a little less Star Wars. But sometimes, I mean, I grew up in the era where you got Empire Strikes Back, then you waited 3 years for Return of the Jedi, then you waited how many years for Phantom Menace, right? So
well, what do you think, Laura? I mean, do you want her to show up? Does it make sense? I mean, look, time-wise, in terms of the chronology of what's going on in the Star Wars universe, Star Wars galaxy, does it make sense for her to show up in an episode of Ahsoka, considering where they're going, way out there trying to get Ezra and Thrawn?
I think that it does make sense, because you have to remember that Bo-Katan is the one who told Din Djarin where Ahsoka was. So they're obviously in touch in some capacity. So I think it would make sense in some ways. I think it's going to be interesting to see the Ahsoka show play out, because I'm starting to wonder if maybe we're not going to really see Ahsoka and Sabine leave for this journey until, like, maybe a little ways into this series. Like, it's not going to happen right away. Like, there's going to be other stuff they got to do first before they can actually get out of there. So I don't know, maybe in some of those early episodes she makes an appearance. I want Bo-Katan in everything. So I'm not going to discriminate. She can show up whenever, wherever she wants. She can show up in the Acolyte for all I care. So yeah, that's where I stand with it.
Baby Bo-Katan.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, how old is she? She wouldn't even be alive.
War within worlds.
Let's not get into how old Bo-Katan is, because that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. Well, it's different ages on Mandalore. You know what I mean? The planet and the sun, and you could live longer. She looks great for her age.
I didn't know there was a controversy. I did not know that. I just stumbled upon it the other day, and I was like, oh my God, why do people care about this shit? Like, it's KATEE Sackhoff. Let her play the character for as long as she can play the character. Why are you tied to this?
What's canonically, how old is she in the show? Not about the actress.
It's unclear, because she kind of doesn't really come off as like a teenager in the Clone Wars, but that's how they're kind of trying to retroactively make it seem that way. She kind of seemed more like she was in her 20s or 30s or something, which would put her in like her 60s or 70s now. So that's
great.
And that's right. Like, the Mandalorian Botox is just,
it's the mask too. They've been protected from the sun all the time wearing the masks.
You know, you've got a good point there. But yeah, so that's one of I'm in the same boat as you, John, where I'm just like, who cares? Do you not want KATEE Sackhoff to play the character? I want her to play the character forever, so I don't give a shit. Like, she can be whatever age they want her to be. It's fine.
Not everyone's Ming Na Wen. Not everyone's Ming Na Wen. So let her play it right now as she can play it, for God's sakes. I'm happy to see it. The thing that really stood out to me is how she spoke about how they go about creating this, with Filoni being kind of on the set when he could be, but Favreau and Rick Famuyiwa really being a big part of how this series was constructed and how this all went down. But the fact that they're all in different areas, and her trying to run back and forth until realizing she can't do all that stuff. Because again, that's the dedication KATEE has. She wants to be the one that does everything. And you get that from that kind of actor. You understand that. But that was interesting too, to hear that, right, Laura?
I really enjoyed that part of it, where she was talking about how she could like watch the other, because she talked a lot about how there are 2 units that are filming it a lot of the time, and she was able to like watch the other unit like on her phone from whatever set that she was on, and provide feedback like remotely. I think that's so cool. Like, I don't know anything about this world and the world of production, so maybe that's how a lot of shows work. I don't know, but I thought that kind of stuff was fascinating.
Yeah, Kevin, she says there are 2 units moving at all times. There are very few scenes that I saw. I don't want to say few. There are scenes that I saw that I was not there. 80% of the time I was there, I did at least once, if not most of it. And then she hands it off to her stunt double. But she talks about the fact that, like, you saw every single one of those guys there. She's talking about Favreau, Filoni, and Rick Famuyiwa. It's a huge lot. They're so busy. They're all there. If they are not physically on set, they have what I have, which is what Laura was talking about. And so she says you're collaborating at all times, physically on set every day. You know, John is there, Rick is there, Dave is working his butt off. They are all so busy, but he's there. I saw him every day on set. So it's this big collaboration between everybody. They have a lot going on. So, you know, it's beyond just a regular shoot. It seems like there's this super intense stuff going on where you're checking in with everybody to make sure everything kind of passing muster.
Yeah, a far cry from the back in the day where it was like a green screen and they're talking to a golf ball, you know what I mean? Now, like, you could go in there and like the actors talk about how like, yeah, I'll like move and the camera will move and it will adjust everything around me, and like it feels like they're there. Like that's got to be a kick. I wonder if they'll ever have that on display where like fans can go. You know what I mean? Like
the volume.
Yeah, you get like 5 minutes in the volume. You know.
So I will say this. A friend of mine is a producer with Greg Berlanti Productions, and they shot something in the volume, and he sent me video of him being there and what it looks like in person, like what it looks like in person there. And I was awestruck. I was awestruck by it, you know, because it is no picture can do justice to the size and scope of this thing. And when you're watching it in an actual video, like a cell phone video, you're just like, oh my God, this is insane. Cool. So yeah.
As long as they don't over rely on it. That's why Andor was refreshing, doing like a lot of outside stuff too. Yeah. But I think it's real handy, especially like for like spaceship scenes and like, you know, it's less for imagination. Like they can really feel, not that they have imagination, but they can really feel like they're there because it's a lot of visual cues. So, and by the way, 5 minutes in the volume sounds like a game high school kids play at a party. So 5 minutes in the volume, spin the bottle.
Those were the days. Laura, another part of this, and I'll get back to you again before Kevin gets.
And this is my last appearance on the JEDI Way. I see everybody.
She said that she didn't know about the movie or any of this stuff until it was announced at Celebration. She says, I found out when you guys did. I had no idea. The idea of a big event that will close off storylines has been chattered. That has definitely been in conversations between Dave, John, and I, and they've talked to other people about it. They've talked to me as well. So I knew it was coming, but I have no idea what it's about, and I have no idea who's in it. How much of that do you believe, and how much of that do you think that's a little Lars Mikkelsen type stuff?
I don't want to call her a liar right
here. Liar. I'm saying she's got NDA. She's got to respect the NDA. What do you think?
No, for real. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we started hearing the rumblings of this Dave Filoni movie a couple weeks in advance. So yeah, I imagine she's probably known about it longer than any of us have. But the fact that, I don't know, I'm like, they have to have some idea of what it's about, you know, of like who's gonna be in it, and scheduling's got to be like a little bit in the works already. Like, come on. So I don't know, but I'm excited for it. And if it ends up being a sort of Avengers-esque sort of movie, that's right up my alley. I'm totally fine with that.
What do you think, Kevin? Do you think she's playing it safe here, or do you think she actually was like surprised by it? Because sometimes, I mean, Disney does surprise people and drop stuff, you know.
I think when athletes get fired by a team and they discover it on ESPN's ticker on the bottom, that happens. But I feel like everybody knows you're on set all the time, and like anybody who's ever been on set, there's so much downtime. So you don't mean to say that no one's like, oh no, actually that's going to figure in later for the movie that Favs is doing. Like, I don't know if that's been so, but then again, it is Star Wars. They're under extreme lock and key. I would say that if she is fibbing, I'm totally fine with it, because she's also trying to sell, like, Celebration has big announcents and stuff like that. Right, you know what I mean? Like, she got to get people. We're all going to Tokyo in 2025. So.
Well, some of us are. The throne stuff I thought was really fun, but let's hit two things. Let's hit two things before we move off the interview. The idea of her delivering this monologue, right? I mean, this is surprising what you said, that it was like a Braveheart level type monologue that was shot a few times, apparently, and she really got William Wallace-ish, is what she said, but they cut it down. Do you think they felt like the speech seemed a little truncated when you watched it in the season? So do you feel like they should have let it go on? Do you think they cut it out because they had to kind of get to other things? What did you think about this, Laura?
I don't know. I want to see it. Just give me the deleted scenes. Give me a physical DVD, Blu-ray or something, and put that on there, please. I just want to see it. I don't know. I wonder if it was maybe it was a pacing thing. There are a couple of, I mean, I went back and rewatched, I think it must have been episode 7, where she's, talking about surrendering to Moff Gideon and her sort of monologue she goes on through there. And upon rewatches, it feels a little bit clunky, and I wonder if maybe that's what ended up happening. If maybe it was just maybe too much. But I feel bad. I'm like, if it must have been really epic too. So I do still want to see it, but I imagine that's maybe that's what happened. That would be my guess.
Yeah, what do you think about this, Kevin? She said the scene was much longer. That scene was super long when she's talking about we got to get back to Mandalore with the 2 different clans. She says this is a rousing thing. You're inspiring these two separate clans to get out there and go retake their homeworld. It has to be emotional and big. And for whatever reason, it got cut down a lot. But that moment for she says, I love the season, but that moment for me was like, I wish they'd given more context to what had happened right before, because I think that would have made that speech land heavier. And she said the majority of the takes I did were Willie Wallace-esque. So what's your thoughts on this? Do you feel like, oh, that explains why that speech maybe didn't feel quite as rousing as you were hoping it would feel?
Man, sometimes they call it field memory, and I'm not to discount her. She might have been stoked about it, but like when you're in the edit bay, sometimes you look at it. When I work in TV, like I'll be told this scene was amazing. Oh, there's this part I remember where one of the cast members like grabs her husband by the leg and like says, "Don't go," and they promoted it like, you got to make sure this is in the super tease. It's like, and it's like, no, she's she's just kind of drunk and playing it. She's like, "Oh, don't go," and he's like, "I gotta go, honey." Like, and they built it up, so we always call it field memory. So I'm not saying that she's building it up, but also sometimes when you're in a scene, like all of a sudden you're editing something down, and like the weird thing is they don't really have like air. Like for me, I literally, just as we were coming on air, I finished an episode. I was telling Rocha I had to send my timings out, and like we have to get it to a certain time and like frame to the very frame to fit in for broadcast quality. But you don't need that for Disney Plus. So that's why it leads me to believe that it just might not have been working in the edit bay, because if they're not trying to make a runtime, right? And you just have to wonder, like, well, what is the end goal of this speech? Maybe they feel like maybe they got and sometimes look, studio execs give bad notes sometimes, and maybe someone just said it's dragging. Let's get to the action faster, and that's unfortunate. So, but she loves you because you support Dinbo, so maybe she'll send you a text of the video. You know what I mean? We can see it.
I would be down for that. My number is 312
555.
It's going to be Axe. Go on. They kept him alive for a reason.
No, it's not. It is absolutely not. Get out of this room right now. There's no way they're going to pair her up with Axe. That would be so stupid. No way. Absolutely not. It's going to be Din. It's going to be Din. Just watch. They're going to figure out how to make it work.
Din is going to die in the Avengers.
No,
movie.
He's not.
He's
no, he's not.
His fingers like Tony Stark and save the galaxy, and Grogu will live on in the Rey movie.
No,
I said it here.
This is the way. Snap.
I will not accept this. No, the movie is going to have more of Pedro's face because it has to, and then when they don't have to have helmets on and in the way, they'll make it work. They'll make it work.
They keep speaking so positively about a season 4, but we'll see. I mean, as you said earlier, Laura, KATEE hints around the fact that Pedro was not on set because he was shooting Last of Us up there in Canada. So they made it work with, and she said, I primarily worked with the two other guys when I was doing my scenes. So it wasn't Pedro in the helmet. So when we've seen this before in Star Wars, a grand tradition of this from the first movie on, when James Earl Jones came in later, the voice over the lines that David Prowse was saying in the Darth Vader outfit. So it's not like this is some kind of grand revelation that's never happened in Star Wars before. It's always been this way. And so it's just, I don't know why people seem to have such a big issue about it. But if Pedro doesn't want to be in it, and there's rumors about him not wanting to be in season 4, you can understand why, but he'll come back for the movie because, as you said, Laura, you don't cast Pedro Pascal for a feature film in Star Wars and keep him under the helmet for the majority of the movie. Yeah. That just ain't going to happen.
I see it in my head. It's like him. Like, it's funny, too, because, like, Daniel Craig in The Force Awakens, when he's walking away, that you could totally tell that's James Bond walking away in a stormtrooper costume, right, when he's dropping the thing. But, like, I just, even though I knew he wasn't on set, like, you're just mind's eye kind of fills in the blanks for me, and I tell the story they're telling me, and I believe that that's that's Din in there. You know what I mean? So,
one last thing I want to hit here, and I'll swing back to Laura again. Laura, your thoughts on what you said about Bo-Katan's journey, like her arc here, and this is something I talked about in the reviews, or we talked about in the reviews, the idea of how she is in this place of her ego had gotten the best of her because she was younger. She was full of piss and vinegar. And that's what happens in life. You're full of piss and vinegar when you're young, in your 20s and your 30s, and you think it's all good, and you demand things and you think you're owed things. But as you get older, you realize, those are the things that sometimes fall away, and you've got to learn the lesson. And you have much more perspective on things once you hit a certain age, or you hope, if you've got any gear for self-reflection. And it seems like what she's saying here, this is a person whose ego has driven her for so long, and to see that she surrendered because it was the only option she had, talking about what happened with Moff Gideon. The destruction that continued after that was heartbreaking. And I thought, in my mind, the only reason he didn't kill her was because he wanted her to live with that. And that's why she hates him so much. And I think the way that people can be forgiven and find atonement is to be genuinely regretful or remorseful of the things they've done in the events of their past. So that's kind of where she took Bo. So were you encouraged by hearing that, or like excited to hear that she had all of that working on and they worked on that for the story of Bo?
I love that Katie was she was so invested in this character and has been with her for so long that she knows exactly what that pain and that guilt that Bo-Katan carries around with her is, and has just, you know, I mean, she talks about how like Bo-Katan made a lot of mistakes in her youth. She put her trust in the wrong people, and ultimately, you know, her sister ended up dying as a result of some of these things. So it was the fact that she then has to carry that around with her, and we see her journey over the course of so many years and check in with her periodically, and we see how she evolves. And I love that we got that little arc in Rebels where we kind of see like, oh, this is a different Bo-Katan than we left. And then getting to check back in Clone Wars season 7, getting even more insight to this character. It was just so great. And I love that they brought it all back around. And I love that she has such an intense understanding of the character that she's the one who could kind of provide feedback on the set and be like, I don't know if she would say this, or if she would say it this way, or if she would move this way. Like it's just really rewarding as a viewer to get to see that play out and get to see this character that we met back in 2008, 9, 10 or something, and get to this point with her. It's just, it's really, it's rewarding. That's kind of, I think, the best way to put it. And it's beautiful to see the way that she brings that character to life in live action and still honors the sort of subtleties of the animation and what they brought to that character. She honors that in the best way. It's great.
Agreed. Kevin, your thoughts on her comments on it?
I just think that it's just so cool to see someone, like I've said, like to make the jump to live action and do so flawlessly. Like I just recently saw some of the final arc with the Siege on Mandalore and stuff, and like, you know what I mean? And then I was showing my wife a scene because we're gonna watch Return of the Jedi on Friday, so just showing her scenes. But when like she says to Obi-Wan, she says to Kenobi, like, you know, if you felt anything for my sister, like you should understand, like, and like she still has that even in animation, she has that, and now it's just so enhanced by having it in live action. Like her inclusion in these Disney Plus shows is totally enhancing her in the Clone Wars, and that's just great. And so I'm just very happy for her, and like the overall journey. No one knows better than her. No one except maybe Filoni, right? So I put my trust in her, and I can't wait to see her with Axe holding hands during the Avengers Filoni version. Oh, we're together. They're going to walk out holding hands. You know, oh, you didn't know we're together.
It doesn't even work, does it? Dinax? It doesn't Axe Dan. It doesn't even work. Or I mean, sorry. What would it be?
Dinax.
Axbo? Axbo?
That sounds like a deodorant. Dinax.
Oh,
Dinax.
Bo-Axe, Axbo. I don't know if that would work necessarily.
She said
Bo-Axe sounds more like a piece of workout equipment or something.
Well, you got to give a shout out to Harloff for giving you a shout out. Because you've been pushing Dinbo, so Bo-Katan heard it straight from him, so that was really nice of him to do, to give you the shout out. I bet you were geeking out a little bit, right?
It was a long weekend of a lot of geeking out over that interview. So truly lovely.
Bo-Katan woes. I don't know if that works. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll see if we'll get a Bo-Katan series down the road, which would be really great to see her bringing Mandalore together with the armor, with maybe some recurring visits from Din and Grogu. It would be interesting if down the road we have ourselves a KATEE Sackhoff-led series that focuses on that with her journey there on Mandalore and bringing the whole planet together. Could be a lot of fun, honestly. Could be like a Game of Thrones type show. We shall see.
Ooh,
all right. Well, let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into 2 more quick stories before we wrap up for the week here. And we're back right after this. All right, Laura Kelly, we're going down to, I think, New Zealand or Australia. What's the next bit of news here we got?
We got to talk about Temuera Morrison's Mandalorian Season 3 snub. He made some comments earlier this week at a convention, and it was really heartbreaking to read the words on the page. I'll say that. Whether there's more to it in terms of tone that we're missing, that's a big question mark, because it appears nobody filmed it. But the fact that he is now revealing that he was originally intended to be in The Mandalorian Season 3, but nobody called him. He says, I was waiting for the phone call in New Zealand, waiting and wanting to give up. And then he goes on to talk about how Din Djarin stole a few chapters of the Book of Boba Fett, which I'm just like, this just keeps getting deeper and deeper as to how heartbreaking it is to read on the page. Again, I wonder how it actually came off in person. That's my big question. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, what do you think, Kevin? What do you think about his comments here?
Well, I mean, we had on our text thread, I sent that video where like he had another interview in like Australia. And he's kind of a goofy dude, like he's very charismatic, and like you want to hear him say it. And like, especially the one quote that where he's like, oh, I was wanting to give up. Like that's the line where I'm like, that's got to be said funny to like, he probably said that with like, and then I was wanting to give up, you know? So I feel like he's having a little fun, and like, it is funny. Cause like, when and we were all happy to see Din in Book of Boba Fett for those episodes, but like, yeah, I wonder, like Boba Fett's like, hey, come back here, it's me, it's Book of Boba Fett. Like, it's like, so it's funny that he like made a quote, but maybe he's just having fun because he knows the fans kind of were giving the show grief about it too. Like, you know, I really hope that to see more. I saw a cool fan art of Ahsoka fan art poster where it was Captain Rex, and it was Temuera Morrison as Captain Rex. I'll find it. That would. Oh wow! So, yeah,
there have been some rumors that he might show up in the Ahsoka show as. I don't know how reputable any of them are, but there has been that has come across my desk of that he might be showing up as Rex.
Right. Oh, there you go. Yeah,
sitting right next to me in the dark.
Looks great, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that he's tongue in cheek. You know, I thought it was good that we mention it and talk about it. You know what I mean? So with Mandalore at stake, it's funny though, because like again, like Boba Fett, like that's not his upbringing, right? Like he, you know, he has a far different origin story. Like he came out of a test tube. So I think he would have answered the call and helped him out because they helped him out in his show. But you know, maybe logistics just didn't work out. I hope it's not, you know, politics. That would be really unfortunate if it was politics about, oh, Book of Boba Fett underperformed, so let's just rip this from him. Like, because some of us like the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, the guy wrote a Rancor. He wrote a Rancor. So,
yeah, and the hashtag Bring Back Boba Fett certainly trended after this interview and after this news broke. So yeah, just interesting stuff to consider. And a lot of people pushed back and went, yeah, where were you guys before when the series was happening? Because you all stayed silent for a majority of the time. And I think I even saw some people go back and find tweets from people who were saying Bring Back Boba Fett, bashing the series.
Oh,
going,
they were doing the "this you?" question mark. Oh, that's cold. I like it though. I loved the Book of Boba Fett. So this was sort of heartbreaking to hear and to read, I think. But yeah, I'm hoping that you're right, Kevin, and that hopefully a good portion of this was in jest.
And it's a good reminder, like if something's out there and you like it, like don't be shy, like let people know. And even if you're the only one standing there and you're like that GIF with all the swords pointing at that one guy, like and you know, unpopular opinion, like to me, like I grew up playing in the sand with my Boba Fett action figure, trying to figure out how he got out of the Sarlacc. I like the story they told. I got to see it live action. Like I get it. Like, you know, there's some things that don't work, like you were saying, the Jolly Rancher crew and stuff like that. Not
like, for me. It's not
you know, and I remember I saw something where someone online sped up this chase because the chase was really slow and stuff like that. And they sped it up in post or whatever. But for me, like, you know, you're not going to hit like some of the best baseball players of all time, like they bat like, you know, 350 or like 400 or whatever. Like that's a game of failure. Like you're still, if you're batting 300, you're still missing 7 out of 10 times. Like, so you forgive Star Wars that sometimes it has a pretty good batting average, that if not everything goes your way, don't turn on the filmmakers, don't turn on the fandom, and then create this toxic environment. It's so sad. Like, I hate to see it. I saw Ryan Johnson tweeted something. I know this is off topic, but he tweeted something, and like, and I was like, oh, that's like interesting. And then like, dare I scroll just down a little bit and see the mean things people were writing about, like, well, how about you don't destroy Luke for me, and how about you stop filmmaking altogether? Like, that is just so, it creates a real sadness in me. Look, as someone that kind of was on the brink and almost died, like, there are a lot worse things that you can get worked up about. I feel like that fandom should just all come together. But again, going back to what I was saying,
not that he's wishing cancer on the fandom and that they recover from. He's just saying there are things you can learn from the process. Is what he's saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to compare that. I'm just saying, well, there are worse things out there that you could focus on, and you could also, as a fandom, like, come together and support. And if you like something about something, let them know, because then they'll know and they won't be afraid, or they won't. Hopefully it didn't happen. Pull the plug on someone.
Right.
Or if you just tweet about it obsessively, KRISTIAN HARLOFF will give you a shout out on his show. There's also, that's the other side of it.
That's the other side of it for sure. But yeah. But, I think he probably was. He's, if you've watched any of the Taika Waititi movies, there's a sense of humor down there. They don't take themselves seriously. It's a lot more of a taking the piss out of things for New Zealand and Australian people. And so it's just a different point of view, a different approach. So very possibly, because a few people tweeted on Twitter that they were in the room and felt that it was a bit of a jest that he was making. And look, he's always up for it, right? I mean, he showed up in Kenobi as a homeless droid there, or a homeless clone, right? He was sitting there and looking for money. Wasn't that what? Didn't he show up?
Yeah.
So it was like
a helmet with a clone trooper helmet.
Exactly.
We not all lose our minds at that. That was awesome.
Right. So he's clearly up for things, and he's down for whatever they're doing. I'm sure he feels like, you know what? Anytime I get to do this is nice. I would like to do it more, absolutely. But that's up to the writers. It's up to the people there. And even Katie said in her interview that stuff like that is above my pay grade. Whatever they decided that they can do, then he understands that. Temuera's not going to go marching into Disney's offices and be like, you got to give me a season 2. It's just not his way. And, maybe there was a feeling like, well, you took my show away from me for a couple episodes. I'm not happy about that. But I mean, who was giving Temuera Morrison a lead in any show? So there's a bit of perspective that he has that I think is very healthy to have. And so, some people got to take these comments as a little bit of a jab in a playful way, not a jab in an angry way.
And imagine opening night of the Filoni-verse Avengers movie when our heroes are down and they're getting pinned down or something, and all of a sudden you just hear the jetpack and land, superhero landing. There he is, Boba Fett. You haven't seen him since Book of Boba Fett. Even all the people that were negative about the show are going to lose their minds. They're in the crowd. They're going to cheer at the theater because there he is. There's his big entrance, and then Boba Fett's going to help out our heroes.
See those knee rockets. I can't wait. All right, let's get to the one last story here, Laura, with Andy Serkis. What's going on here?
Andy Serkis has confirmed, or Tony Gilroy has confirmed, that he's going to be returning in season 2 of Andor. This is massive, because that seemed like that was such a pivotal moment in the story of season 1 of Andor, was the alleged death of Kino Loy. And now here we are. I mean, after Celebration, we had all of these people chanting in the room, one way out. And here we are. Now they're bringing this character back, supposedly. This comes from ET Online. Tony Gilroy had a conversation with them and basically said that he didn't die. ...
Yeah, I like that. He said, if I don't see a dead body, that's kind of so I'm a fan of it. I loved him in Andor. He was such a surprising addition to the show, and when everyone was just like, what, Andy Serkis? And then seeing the progression and seeing how Andor convinced him and showed him what was actually going on here, there was so much emotion. Sometimes people forget he's an actor. Yes, he's done the motion capture stuff for a number of things, Snoke and Planet of the Apes and what have you, but he's actually a damn good actor. And I liked him in the Luther film, by the way, that's on Netflix. If anybody hasn't watched that, he's damn good as a villain in that. So seeing him in this and seeing him had the pathos and the vulnerability and, dare I say, the gravitas that he brought to this role, you felt it, so that you had that moment where, you find out that he can't swim and Andor is taken over before you know what happens to him. So the fact that we're getting these, they said at Star Wars Celebration that the next season is every 3 episodes is a year, we're going to get time with Kino Loy and find out what happened with him. And it would be great if it's a 3-episode arc with Kino being part of it in it. So I'm excited because Serkis developed a damn good character here. What do you think, Kev?
We've already seen Kino Loy. Yes, we have. No, we had 2 movies with him.
Cut it out.
He's Snoke. I'm telling you, dude. You'll see. You'll see. Yeah, I'm excited for it. Now, like, I don't know if he confirmed that are there confirmations that he's in this next season, or the quotes just say, oh, he could be alive, and like there's speculation about it. That was the one thing that I wanted to.
No, he's confirmed to be in it.
That's a crazy revelation. Like, he was so well loved. Like, that would be, and especially because when he popped up in the series as it went, we didn't even know he was in it. All of a sudden, you're like, wait, why is Andy Serkis in here? And he ended up being like this super popular character. So I'm shocked that like they would reveal the fate of him so easily. But like, color me, the hype train's up. And again, I've been shouting this from the rooftops, and it's ridiculous, I know. But hey, when you go all in, you know, you just got to keep hoping that you cash your chips. So Kino Loy is Snoke. It's happening. Remember those shirts? Your Snoke theory sucks. It'd be funny to have your Kino Loy theory sucks. But yeah, I'm happy for him. I actually met him one time. I was on a run in Santa Monica. I have a picture of it on my social medias, but I was running and I was sweaty, right? This is how he's such a nice guy. And there were these autograph hounds. It was outside the shutters on the beach in Santa Monica. And he was signing all these posters for fans. But one of them like had just a pile of posters, right? And it's like, obviously this guy is going to turn around and sell it on eBay, which is probably sucks for him. But he still took the time, and I made a joke about Snoke or whatever, and he was so nice. And he's like, "You want a picture?" I'm like, "Sure." So I took a picture, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm sweaty, so you might want to." And he's like, "Oh, no, man, mate." And he put his hand on my like sweaty shoulder, and I'm like, "Okay." So Kino Loy has felt my sweat on my shoulder. I just want to say,
cool.
But he was like the nicest. He was like the nicest guy, and he was so patient with, because again, he was so patient with those other person that he's clearly obviously doing it for the resell. But you know what I mean? But
you're excited, Laura, on this Kino Loy coming back?
This was, you know, I've spoken a lot about this. Andor was not my favorite of all of the Star Wars live action series that we've gotten. It just didn't connect with me in any huge way. But this prison arc, and especially that, I think it was episode 10, where we actually do see all of them jump into the water. Like, that episode really landed for me. That was a really solid episode of Star Wars television. So this is exciting. He was an interesting character, and I think he had an interesting arc, and I think that there's definitely more story to tell there. So I hope that they are taking advantage of that, and taking advantage of the sort of fan response that they got. There is some indication in the story that there's a little bit of joking around, but I don't know. I think that there's something to it. It sounds like they're serious about it. And my only hesitation is like, maybe there's like a flashback or something, and that's why they bring him back. But it doesn't seem like they would take the time out of the story to do that when we only have 3 episodes for each sort of arc or each year. So I think that's unlikely, but I think it's interesting that he's coming back.
Well, to quote my good buddy Brandon Hanna, if Kino Loy can't swim, then how did he swim his way into our hearts?
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Okay. And he never won a belt? That's shocking. Anyway, all right, let's move on here.
That's a great quote.
Let's wrap. But yes, Brandon, you're absolutely right. Let's wrap up this episode of the Jedi Way. Thank you all so much for joining us, whether you're watching us or listening to us. We appreciate it madly. Please remember to subscribe to the channel down below and hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping all the Jedi Way content and other content that we do here on the Outlaw Nation channel as well. And remember, if you want to download it, listen to us, it's on the Outlaw Nation podcast feed. So this episode will be up on that feed as well. Kevin, another great show. Thanks so much for joining us, taking the time. Like you said, you had your sick daughter to deal with, but you came and hung out with us, so we appreciate it madly. And tell your wife thank you as well for letting you come on to hang out with us. Where can they find you and what you got going on, man?
At Kevin Smets. You can find me on the social medias, and then also on at Scoundrels_Inc. The Scoundrels Inc. is a Star Wars podcast with me, Brandon Hanna, Sean Sully, and Frank Janish, and we talk Star Wars as well. I'm not on it as much as I can be because I live in San Diego, but I do the pop-in. I started that podcast with them, and they're a good group of dudes, so go support that. And then RevanTrilogy.com for all my KOTOR movies and animations, and it's for another time. I like I said, every time I could get into it for like 45 minutes if I wanted to. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always fun talking Star Wars with you guys.
Respect. And then respect to Frank Janish's eye, which I didn't know was a photographer. I got his Instagram, was watching all his great photos. So shout out to Frank. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Laura Kelly, another fun show. Always great to see you. Please let people know what you got going on and where to find everything you got going on.
Sure, come find me on Twitter at @shutup_Laura, and you can listen to the show that I host with my friend Alice called Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, where we drink wine and talk about Star Wars. And if you keep an eye on my feed, I'll retweet it when it comes out, but I'm going to be doing a review of the High Republic Cataclysm novel that came out a while back on the Now This Is Lit podcast. So I'll, as soon as that's out, I will let everybody know, but we're going to be hopefully recording that tomorrow.
Nice. Good stuff. All right. As for me, at the Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, the Outlaw Nation on Twitch, and everything else there. You can find out everything I got going on there in my world. Just follow me on all those places. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the Jedi Way. And before we go, Laura, what do we have to tell them?
Until next time, remember, your focus determines your reality.